Okay. There's a few macaroni and cheese little things going around. See if you can get one. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our special networking evening reception. And welcome to our webcast viewers. We're very sorry you're not here in person to network with us, but we're really glad that everyone has decided to spend the evening with us. And we're going to have a great time. My name is Colleen Kennedy, and I am honored to be the Executive Director of the Canadian Club of Toronto and your host this evening. This is the second networking event that we've held at LinkedIn, and we are so thankful and grateful for them for opening up literally their garage doors for us and letting us take over their space for this really important conversation. And we wouldn't be able to do it without them, so thanks to everyone at LinkedIn. But first, I want to acknowledge the land that we're meeting on. For many centuries, there's been numerous amounts of Indigenous nations that have lived on this land. Most recently, the Mississauga of the New Credit First Nation, and we are very grateful for the opportunity to meet on this land. We know how important networking is. Building strong networks can help our careers, help our personal lives, and bring growth in all different factors of our lives. Some of us admittedly do it better than others, and sometimes we don't feel like the playing field is even. I don't know how your golf game is. Mine's not great. But I'm certain we're going to benefit from our discussion from our amazingly networked and LinkedIn panel. So it's time to link up at LinkedIn. But before we move on, I'd like to ask our moderator today, Cindy Filiatrault, to, we didn't get many business cards tonight. We're giving away a subscription to The Logic. Do you know The Logic? Here we go. Anyone? All right. You guys are lucky. Oh, no. We're going to draw it. Thank you so much. All right. All right. I don't know if everyone's aware of what The Logic is. They are, I'm going to head over here. Okay. The Logic is Canada's newest and best publication about the innovation economy. I do daily updates, which I read every day. Everyone's good? Okay. And so it'll come right into your inbox, and you'll be able to get it, and you'll appreciate all of their great things. So, Cindy, now you'll have to move this up.
Thank you. I'm not going to look. I read The Logic. It's a great publication. Haman Mamdoui.
Oh, that's right.
It works.
It says, elect him, vote. What are you running for?
I ran, but I made too many of these and I'm reusing.
Okay. We'll get you your subscription, Haman. Congratulations. So we at the Canadian Club Toronto are very proud of our track record of offering dynamic and engaging speakers and panels. Few clubs enjoy such staying power. We've been around for over 122 seasons. We have been intentional about building relationships, partnerships, and networks to respond to the needs of our members and guests and our changing society. Sponsorships are important to us, so I'd like to acknowledge the generosity of McCarthy Tetro this evening for making it happen. And I'd like to welcome Ontario Regional Managing Partner, Khadija Sabay, and she's pretty excited to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, the energy in this room is amazing, so thank you. We really value our membership in the Canadian Club, and I'm here tonight on behalf of my colleague, Waseem, who is on the board of the Canadian Club. And I'm delighted to be here with my incredible colleagues from McCarthy's and my friend from PwC. Tonight, this topic resonates with me personally. And why? Because the power of networking and building connections with everyone. I truly believe we can't build a new world and address the challenges that face each of us develop new opportunities, and be inspired with the same people always at our table. We need to build more inclusive tables, and networking, I truly believe, is one of the most impactful ways to do that and to bring new people at your table. So tonight, I am really looking forward to hearing from our tremendous panel and learning how they unlocked the power of networking and at how it's propelled them in their career and in their lives, and helping them build their inclusive and more cognitively diverse tables. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khadija, and thank you, McCarthy. So let's go on to our panel. Let's hear from them. Joining us are some amazing board members that I get to work with every day, and we're thankful for them to take our time to actually share their stories. So I'm going to go through and tell you a little bit about them. Anita McOuat is the National Leader Technology Media and Telecom at the Assurance Practice of PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, or PwC. She's also our treasurer and a member of the executive committee. She also serves on the board of Ontario Media Development Corporation and the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television. Next to her, Tracey Pearce. In 2017, Tracey was one of the 35 women from around the world accepted to the International Women's Forum Leadership Foundation Fellow Program. She serves as a director on the boards of Discovery Canada and CTV Specialty Television Incorporated, while maintaining an executive role as president of distribution and pay, as well as leading the day-to-day operations of Creative TV. Just a few things. So Pamela Warren is a partner at Egon Zehnder, where she provides leadership to its board, consumer, and health practice groups. She's an expert in CEO, executive, and board recruitment and advises on CEO succession planning. Pam regularly speaks on governance and best practices and is an incredible resource in that area for me. Khadija Waseem. Khadija is a national youth advocate and a third-year student in the University of Toronto's Commerce program at Rotman. Most recently, she served as a member of the Prime Minister's Office Policy Team. She specializes in youth policy and has founded various youth social services programs in Toronto, and she just got a new job at Move the Dial Canada. Congratulations. So facilitating this evening's discussion, we're lucky to have Cindy Filiatrault. She is the Canadian co-chair of LinkedIn's Female Employee Resource Group, Women at LinkedIn. So a natural moderator for us this evening. Don't forget, we want to hear from all of you too. At the end of the discussion, we'll open up the floor to questions. We'll pass around the mic, so flag down a staff member, and we'll hopefully get your questions answered in due time. So Cindy, panelist, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to have the chance to moderate tonight's discussion, to get a chance to network with all of you fine folk, and to get a chance for LinkedIn to collaborate with the Canadian Club, an institution we respect. Jake is very involved with the Canadian Club and is always looking for ways to help integrate what Canadian Club and LinkedIn are doing together. So please know how honored I am to be moderating tonight's conversation and how grateful I am to have this chance. So thanks for being here. It is International Women's Day on Friday, you're all aware. The context around tonight's event was intended to be how women can develop strategies for networking in partnership with men so that we can achieve a better, more comfortable gender parity in the boardroom, within corporations, in our communities, and to help people from multiple genders, women and men, and everyone on the spectrum of gender, to feel like they have a sense of belonging and entitlement to the place at the table that they want to achieve for themselves. So we had a great conversation earlier last week talking about what tonight's conversation could consist of, and I'm really hoping that you're all going to feel comfortable with a very candid and open conversation about our personal stories, because everyone here has achieved incredible things in their careers as women, with the support of other women, with the support of men, obviously, and your strategies for networking have helped bring you where you are today. So I'm looking forward to learning more from all of you and helping share that with the room. So, Anita, let's start with you.
Okay.
If I had to ask you what you feel is the state of networking today for you, given maybe recent experiences you've had networking, what would you say? How's networking for you?
Well, networking for me is, well, I'll start by saying it's really important for my job. And I have worked really hard at it, and I love doing it now. But I have I don't know, early on in my career, the word networking for me kind of created a bit of an icky feeling. And so I prefer to think of it as making connections, which brings a much more warmer feeling to me. And so, I mean, I was reflecting on this question. I think it's always been important. I work at PwC is a very large organization. And so even early on in my career, when I wasn't out trying to find new business and win new clients, just networking within PwC was really important to my career. So it's something I've actually had to do since the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very big organization, lots of different offices around the world. Was it easy for you to find the connections that you needed to help leverage your growth?
Sometimes it was, and sometimes I had to develop strategies. And I will say that practice makes perfect, and I'll share some of those strategies, as we go on. But I think, it can be uncomfortable. Particularly for me, walking into, I'd say, oh my gosh, what happened?
We can't manage the chairs.
There have been times in my career where I was the youngest person in the room, and I was a woman, and I was a visible minority, and so a triple whammy. And I looked around the room, and everybody was 20 years older than me, a male. And so, yeah, it wasn't always comfortable, but you develop strategies of how to just throw yourself in there.
Well, we're going to get into
Yes.
some of those. Yeah. How about yourself, Tracey?
Well, as I was listening to Anita speak, I think that, I totally agree. Practice makes perfect, as with most things in life. Once you kind of get one thing down, you level up, and then you sort of feel like you're starting again with new challenges, which is great, but also daunting. And we were speaking earlier, and I think, you're always trying to find that sweet spot in networking where you're creating an environment where you feel comfortable enough to be yourself. I cannot manage the chair.
I got you.
I don't want to do a Tony Robbins or start on around, but I might. So I think you want to be comfortable enough that you're at least close to your best self, because that's ideal when you're meeting new people. But on the other hand, if you're in your comfort zone, you're almost by definition not networking. So I think I'm always trying to figure out, what's an environment or a situation where I feel, I can put myself out there, and at the same time, I'm actually meeting new people or increasing the contacts.
Please, yeah, of course.
So just a reminder that I work in an executive search firm, so networking is fundamental to really anyone I'm engaging with as a candidate or even in my own life. So I would first start by saying that networking is vital. It's a non-negotiable, and that is either for internal or for external career progression. It's just part of progression. It's part of your own learning, and it's part of being aware, and it's part of understanding why you might be good at something or not good at something. So, and we can talk about people do have a lot of hesitations from doing networking and maybe why those exist and how you can think about moving beyond them. But personally, I would say I do networking. I've been in my job for a long time, and yet why do I do networking? I do it for either business development, just like Anita, where we both would have that obligation, but I would also say to learn. If we had a search, let's just say for a chief digital officer of a new e-commerce platform, that's new stuff, right? It's new stuff, and so I need to constantly network, either to just understand what it is we're doing and to stay ahead of the game and kind of understand where I might go to solve that solution. So I think I would think of it in my life. It's vital for me to do it for both business development and also really just to stay smart, informed, fresh, and top of my game.
Mm-hmm. Khadija, you're starting out in your career.
I am starting out in my career. First of all, you just have to hustle when you're younger. A lot harder. You have to make sure you're meeting people. So you asked about the state of networking in my current state right now. It's nervousness that this chair doesn't move too much. I already dropped the water bottle, so it's too, you know what I mean? Luckily, nobody had to see that. But it's really about being open to, so the way that I've been looking at it has been creating relationships. So who are the people that I want to get to know? Who are the people that I want to help guide me or mentor me? Who are the people that I want to be like? Not just in their roles, but who I want to be like in the future as a human being, holistically as well. So it's really navigating. And then when you're networking, you're meeting tons of people. There's people that you don't want to be like. And then there's people that you do want to be like. And so that makes you want to hold on to those relationships and invest in those relationships. And you are excited to have coffee with them, and you're excited to meet them because you want to get to know them more.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, authenticity, I think, is really key to our own sense of comfort, our sense of belonging, our ability to connect with other people is much more natural when we don't feel interrupted by self-consciousness or intimidation. And those are really human struggles. I think that we all get a sense of feeling like, you know, sometimes we really want to connect with someone or we're not sure how. If we are constantly evaluating ourselves when we're in a position to connect with somebody else, it's just human chemistry. It's like an oxygen molecule will enter a chemical bond with other things and create completely new entities, completely new, you know, completely new stuff. I'm not a scientist.
It's energy.
Well, this is how I describe human chemistry. I really think it's like that. But we have to own the energy that we bring to a relationship, and doing so with a feeling of empowerment and belonging, I think is essential to creating that relationship and having it reflected and have it come back to you. So I'm going to actually start and work backwards, Khadija.
Good.
When we think not just about the fact that you know that you're young, but you're also Muslim, you are working for Move the Dial, who help you know, the LGBTQ community and women feel a sense of belonging and empowerment in their careers. There's a lot of intersectionality, right?
That's my favorite word.
Intersectionality, because we're not just one thing. I'm not just Cindy, who oversees relationships with some of our customers here at LinkedIn. I'm not just somebody who oversees, you know, who helps shepherd the Women at LinkedIn program here. I am also a woman. I'm a Montrealer. I'm French Canadian. I'm previously divorced. I'm packaged with a bunch of stuff. So tell me about your experience then, owning the different parts of you that make you the whole person that you are.
So to add to these intersections, I'm a middle child. And I feel like that will explain a lot of who I am and what I've experienced in life. But most of the rooms that I enter, there's not a lot of people that look like me. Let's minus my sister and my friend, who do in this case. But generally, when you walk into these rooms, a lot of people don't look like me. And it's really, really important for me to be able to be myself in those situations. This is perhaps the only or the first time that they're interacting with someone who looks like me or is representing the different intersections that I represent. Do I want to be a walking billboard for hijabis everywhere for all those situations? Not really, but it's something that I've realized that it's something that Anita mentioned. I remember that you either take it on and you use it to your advantage, or you use it to, you know, empower other people as much as you're empowering yourself. Or you can be like, woe is me, like my life sucks, there's so many intersections, it's not gonna go anywhere. But I also recognize that the reason why I'm having all these difficulties is so that future generations don't have to. And there's a lot of women that are younger that do look like me, and we need to make sure we're paving the way, and that's why it's really important to have conversations like coffee chats I've had with Tracey, and like really work those out, so that when you do meet people that you don't know, you know that the biases and any like negative feelings that they have towards your identity, it's not about you, it's about them. And if they don't want to get to know me, that's their loss.
I agree. So Anita, because Khadija actually mentioned something that you had said, what do you feel is a good strategy for embodying your sense of belonging when you go into a room where you may not feel like other people like you are going to be represented?
I mean, this still happens to me all the time, and like you said, you just level up, new crowds, you know, some aren't that diverse still. You just take a deep breath, and march right in. And you know what Khadija was referencing is sometimes you actually get a lot of attention, and I don't mean hashtag Me Too attention. I just mean like pleasant. Oh, here's a new person in the mix, and then you just remember everybody's just people, and they have children, and I have children, and they take vacations, and I take vacations, and then all of a sudden we're having a great conversation, and you kind of get over yourself, because sometimes you project a lot onto yourself. You say, well, I'm so different, and really they're just want to have a conversation. So.
Well, yeah, it can be things that we think about ourselves that actually block us from connecting with others. That if we carry those things with us as worries, then it's going to actually interrupt that human connection. Tracey, you're nodding a lot.
Yeah, I think that sometimes when you enter unfamiliar territory, the assumptions are your assumptions. They aren't actually, the people that you're interacting with may not have the same assumptions. I'm going to tell this story, and I'm not going to get any sympathy, and I shouldn't. I acknowledge that. So I do a lot of client hosting that is also networking, and I'm fortunate at Bell Media to have access to a lot of tickets. And so one of the opportunities that is available to me is to host people at the Super Bowl. And I grew up in a family of boys, and I'm pretty familiar with sports, and I would regard myself as a sports fan, but that is a bucket list opportunity for a lot of people. And I'll be honest, I was really intimidated about hosting at the Super Bowl because I had all these assumptions about what that would look like and what the expectations would be. And so it's really just a version of exactly what Khadija said in some respects. And I sort of oddly thought, I am going to host at the Super Bowl because it is really important for a woman to host at the Super Bowl. And I had my armor on, and I'm like, I'm hosting at the Super Bowl. And guess what? People don't care who hosts them at the Super Bowl. They are so thrilled to be at the Super Bowl. And so it was a fantastic experience and opportunity, and I will always be the person who hosted them at the Super Bowl. And I actually had a person come up to me and say, you know what? This is great, but I don't really know either of these teams. Yeah. And I'm like, so, but that was all me bringing all of that to the situation, not the other person. Yeah.
Wonderful. Pam, do you do a lot of networking at sports events, or are there other resources that you?
No, but just the whole cliche with women in golf, right? People say, are you excluded? And I would say, listen, I've been working longer than this one and a few others up here. And it used to be a thing. I would say it used to be a thing, right, where there was the golf game. And I just think I would say, it's not really a big thing anymore, right? Because, both genders are working typically, or it's complicated and nobody's got 6 hours to go play golf. But I would also say you can use that to your advantage in a very tactical way. I think one of my best networking events was and I too have to breathe and go into the room and set them, while I'm warm, I'm not a massive extrovert. So I would say I hosted a half-day women's learn to golf. And you know what? I had more women wanting to do that because they're just like, hey, I have no idea. And yes, there was a fair amount of drinking at lunch and that kind of thing. But you know what? We learned to chip and we moved on. But I think that you can create those. Very rarely are you going to be asked to do something that I think is truly out of your comfort zone.
I really like that. I love that strategy. I would definitely be in for a women's learn to golf. I've golfed, I think, 3 times in my life. My father is an excellent golfer, and he's always, assuming that I'm going to be first time under 100. He would be very disappointed. So please call on me if ever you do this again. So then, if not golf, so one of the reasons that we are told that women don't network as much as men, and it's in the statistics, women don't tend to be as inclined to network early or even mid-career. Women have, the perception of doing more in the home. Okay, that's changing over time, but I think for women who are older, that is still very much true. We have, couples balancing careers and people who are single parents and, reconstituted families where you're on completely one week and off completely another. So there are, traditionally networking is, let's go have drinks after work. That doesn't necessarily work for somebody who's raising a family. Or we're going to go to the game. That, again, doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone. So when we think about ways where men and women could network together in more inclusive ways or ways that don't necessarily focus so much on a gendered or traditional way of networking, what do you have that in your toolkit?
Well, what you described is my life. I've got an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, and that, giving birth to them and them reaching those ages has coincided with prime career networking time in my life. And so quickly I figured out that I need to make the networking part fun, because that's the fun. That's my only time to have fun. So it's too precious. I can't just only have fun or network. And so, yeah, after work drinks never worked, but lunches do. Coffees do, but I'm also fortunate we have access to some tickets and some really fun events. I'm a music lover. I much prefer concerts. I don't mind a game once in a while, but I much prefer concerts. And so partners would be fighting over the Raptors tickets, the Leafs tickets, and the new kids on the block came at TLC and Nelly. No partners went for those tickets. I grabbed them. And I had a group. Now, okay, it was an all-female group that came, but I've got Fleetwood Mac coming up, and men and women together, who are, we're going to enjoy that together. So being a little bit creative, and that for me is going to be as much a fun night out as it is networking. So
that's great.
Yeah, one idea.
Tracey, what do you do that's fun in networking that you think is not traditional?
I would say, the people that you're trying to network with have the exact same constraints that you have, right? They're going, I got to get home, and I'm not sure I want to use an evening that way. So if it's not, something really fun, because let's be honest, that is, that's helpful, and not everybody has access to stuff like that. I would say I've started inviting people out to cool coffee places, because it's short and it's kind of a thing, and people are like, and so there's a couple around our office, or I'll find ones around their office, and it's a really tight time frame, and it's kind of nice, and you have a bit of an icebreaker because you're going to the cool coffee place, and you're kind of in and out. So that would be and I think that's available, whatever stage you are in your career. I didn't give Khadija very good coffee, though, so I'm feeling a bit awkward.
I brought the it's fine. Yeah.
So I would just add one thing. You can make it fun, right? And so if you have a coffee or you have a lunch and you're interested in meeting some new people, you could just say, I'm going to invite my friend and maybe my other friend, and I'm going to say each of you bring a friend, and we're going to talk about how we deal with performance feedback, or we're going to talk about how we mentor, how we seek sponsors in an organization. Just make it a fun, but engaging, where you're learning and you're meeting 3 new people, and you've now created a bit of a group to think something through. So it could just be a sector. I always like learning. So one of the questions I'll put to committee chairs on boards is just bring one problem you're struggling with. We're going to create a safe little environment. We're just going to have a quick lunch. And it's just a nice little exchange. So, and they love it because they've just met 3 more people.
That's a great idea. Well, so one of the things that you mentioned, Pamela, before we got a chance to talk tonight was purpose. So a network exists to connect people for meaningful reasons. So I'm always looking for ways to put people that I know in touch with one another so they can be productive and successful. So I love the way you think about fostering those conversations and that creativity around it. So can you tell us a little bit more about what makes you think, okay, well, I'm going to call Cindy, and I'm going to call Jake, and I'm going to call Anita, and I'm going to call Khadija, and get them together to talk about X, Y, Z? do you have a purpose for yourself in those meetings, or is it purely to get people together and foster conversation that you're at the heart of?
Right. So I think you should always have purpose, truthfully, because I'll just speak on the receiving end of a lot of calls, right? I get inundated with people wanting to meet because I represent a search firm. But why are you reaching out to me? What level are you at? Have you thought about where our firm is? Have you thought about what my practice is? Why are, what is this? And I think the more that you are specific in your thinking, e.g., I'm a head of marketing in a retailer, and I have this unique thing to add, and I'm really curious about this particular sector. Do you mind if we talk about that? I love that, because then I know what I can be helpful. I know that I can bring value, and you will find that valuable. But if we're just getting together and kind of shooting around on, it's a very, I feel very, let's go back to we women are really busy and we've got a lot on the go, so feeling unproductive is not a great feeling. And I think most people that you're asking for a favor would like to feel productive. And so let me just take this one step further. When I meet with execs and they're like, oh, I get so many calls, and how can I be helpful? But if you go into that exec and say, you know what, I would like for your help on 1 or 2 people that might be able to give me a perspective on this idea. They're like, oh, I know how to be helpful. Well, I don't know any of those people, so I'm not helpful. Or talk to Bob, and he's got a great idea on that. And so I think just help people feel good and productive about that time that you've spent.
Khadija, you're nodding a lot.
So the best way, so as a younger person, we are the ones that are emailing you to sort of get time, right? So I think this is not, we're at LinkedIn, so I'm going to put that in there. You can know what anyone does and everything about them through their LinkedIn, right? So if you want to meet someone, you'll have context of who this person is, where they come from, and you're going to be prepared for a coffee chat. You know what specific questions you can ask them, and so you're not wasting time. You're getting to the specific things that you really, really want to learn about them from their career. And as a younger person, I really recommend having a roster of really good coffee places. It just makes you look cooler and hipper than you are. You don't have to have a strong Instagram game, but it's always nice to show, you know what I mean, that if I'm from the city of Toronto, I know different places that have good coffee and if they're pretty, that's a bonus point as well. But being able to ask those questions and about their careers and just be really prepared, so you're not just really, because sometimes you do get overwhelmed by some people's careers. So there was somebody that I met whose career was the span of my life at one company. And when you're looking at them, you're just like, oh my God, you're so accomplished. But it really took me a while to process that this isn't going to happen right now. This is the span of my life. But these are things that you can only be prepared for if you prepare ahead of time for those coffees. And I didn't drink coffee a lot before, but now I have an espresso machine at home because, you know what I mean? There's just a lot going on.
Wonderful. Well, there's a lot in there that I want to unpack.
I think we should all just hold hands. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up LinkedIn.
Nice.
For sure.
Nobody forced me to do that.
Oh, I was going to bring it up. At some point, LinkedIn was going to come up. I'll tell you all a story. I didn't create my own LinkedIn profile. I used to work at Sun Life Financial, and I oversaw a team of 26 people in the call center. Very high volume, very inbound environment, and I had a lot of people chasing after me for answers, and I'm an introvert as well. So at the end of the day, I would leave that environment and not be able to have a conversation for an hour and a half. I literally couldn't get a sentence out that was intelligible for an hour and a half. And so when my ex-husband, who was from the Silicon Valley, told me, you need a LinkedIn profile, I said, I can't handle another channel through which to communicate with me. I'm terrified. He went and did it anyway over the weekend. As soon as my LinkedIn profile was created, of course, as you know, people will find you. Anyone who's emailed you before can send you a connection request. My network essentially started to build itself. And before I had done anything, I got a recommendation from somebody that I had worked with. His name is Derek Tubry. It's still on there. I used to give him little pastries with a bow on top when I needed favors from him for my team. And to this day, it's something I go back to remind me of my contribution, why it's good to work with me, what it is that I bring to the table. It warms my heart, and it reminds me that, you know what, when I'm having a low day, I actually do have this. I've got this, right? So my LinkedIn profile, my network just built itself, and it flourished. And now I actually have 2,000 true connections on there of people that I've worked with, done business with, partnered with, have been my customers or my peers. And these are real relationships. They're all people that I know and trust. I would never be able to keep up to date with 2,000 relationships without the aid of something like LinkedIn, reminding me it's Jake's work anniversary or it's Anita's birthday. As a sociologist, I can tell you that there's a human limit to how many relationships we can actually manage in life. And the size of a big village tended to max out at about 150. We can keep about 150 real one-to-one relationships. LinkedIn's office now is about 200 people. There's a good 50 people I don't know their names, right? So I'm going to ask all of you, I know that you all have LinkedIn profiles, because I do you use LinkedIn for the nurturing of your existing network and to grow your network? And tell me how you use LinkedIn or maybe other tools like that allow you to keep up with so many people over the years.
Well, I'm going to get to LinkedIn, but something you said reminded me of a story. So, because earlier on in my career, maybe when I was a new partner, I had to do a lot more BD. And you're right, you know all these people, but it felt overwhelming. How am I actually going to connect with all these people? And so I created a game for myself. I call it like gamification of networking. And I said, okay, I'm going to go through, and I use LinkedIn a lot. And I said, okay, remember these people that I used to work with? They're alumni of the firm. Where are they now? All these people that I went to Queens with, where are they now? Old clients, where are they now? And I made a list of 52 people. And I said, I'm going to have a lunch a week, and made it fun for myself. And I started with the first few people were friendlies that I had been in more contact with. And I, towards the end of the list were people that were more distant, and I was a little more nervous about reaching out to. And like I think it was the third or fourth lunch, I'd already won a piece of work. And then you get confident and you kind of say, okay, I can skip the list and I can get to some of these that I'm a little nervous about. So that was a strategy early on. And LinkedIn was really helpful to track people down.
I'm taking that idea. I'm going to start with you. We'll send you an invitation to have lunch with me. But yeah, this is great because again, like how do you keep track of people and just seeing where they're going? That having a real meaningful moment with them can reinvigorate an old relationship and open whole new doors. Tracey, can you tell us about a connection that's been really influential for you?
Wow. A connection that's been really influential for me. Marian Turk worked out pretty well for me. So, I think I have found that really interesting connections for me are actually coming significantly from, my effort to connect younger people. And because I find that, there's, as Pam was saying, if someone, that I'm mentoring or reaches out to me and says, this is what I'm looking for, and if what they're looking for is not really in my circle of, immediate comfort, to Anita's point, but, kind of a stretch contact, I've started using that as an opportunity for me to reconnect as well. And it's a bit of a cheat because, you're doing it on behalf of another person, but you inevitably end up having a conversation about, what you're doing and what they're doing and how things are going.
So is that then your strategy for keeping up to date? Because, your network must be massive. How do you keep in touch with everyone over the years?
I think that there are certain events on the calendar in media where people will naturally kind of congregate, and I'm sure that's true in many industries, and so that's useful. I think that there's also now I'm very fortunate to have a very strong network of women friends, and we do a good job, I think, of kind of helping each other to stay in contact with other people. But let's be honest. This is not perfection. I know you're shocked, but no. As you're saying it, I'm kind of thinking, I'm kind of doing pretty well over here, but I'm not doing that great over here, and that's okay. Like honestly, at the end of the day, I think that as Pam said, like making sure that you're in the game. See what I did there? And you're networking. That's the most important thing. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get out to everybody all the time.
Can I just build off of that for a moment? I really underscore what Tracey just said about staying in the game. And do you mind if I share that story we were chatting about? That I had an individual as a senior. He was a senior executive. And he asked me to facilitate a coffee with kind of 6 or 7 senior VP plus women he had worked with over the course of his career. He really thought they were terrific. And he just said, I think they could use a get together with you and a discussion about careers. So we get together, and these are VP level and above women. You know, they get there. They had all been in their respective organizations for let's say a dozen to 20 years each. They all did the same job, but in different organizations. Surprise, no one knew one another, which was shocking to me. I asked about, does everyone have a CV? No one had a CV. I asked, when's the last interview you went on? No one had been on an interview in years. And some of the reactions that came out were, it's disloyal, or I really don't have time, or gosh, I'm just going to be, why would I do that unless I'm really going somewhere? And I think just to build off what Tracey said is it's a muscle. And I would almost, if I was interviewing you and I learned that about you, I would see that as a negative, because I would say, well, you're not actually that strategic if you're not putting your head up and looking at what's out there in the world and staying smart and staying connected. So I think, maybe where we feel like we're being disloyal or we shouldn't be doing that unless we're really looking, I would say, no, you're not being smart, you're not being informed, you're not being aware of what's out there in the world. So just a different twist on how you might look at that.
So I'm so happy I was born at a time where I didn't have to golf or play sports to fit in, and I have LinkedIn so I can manage relationships. So for me, I've always had it since high school, and our teacher really encouraged, this is, you get Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, when you get all of those social medias that are on private, that the one public one that you have is LinkedIn. So knowing what your classmates are up to, and especially connecting with people that are people that you would otherwise never ever have a possibility of interaction with. So we're at a time where I sitting in a classroom can message someone who's the VP or a president of a company and ask them if they want coffee, or if they don't want it, I can bring them something. Do you know what I mean? I can bring you a coffee if you don't have time, or anything like that. But we do have that access. And for me, the way that you gamified it, I would just send cold messages to people that I don't know. And sometimes people responded, and you would be like, oh my God, you're so sweet, thank you for responding. And sometimes you understand people are busy and they won't. So that's sort of how I've used LinkedIn to sort of build my network of reaching out to people and being open to have new connections.
Well, I really appreciate all the thoughts that we've had from the panel. I have a couple of little closing comments. So we have a nice variety around the room of women and men, and depending on your comfort level with networking or your comfort level with networking with people of the opposite gender, I found some strategies online for men and women that I'll read to you. If you're a man and you want to network with a woman, ask them what they do for a living. Not just in business settings, but in social settings as well. Identify the number of women who are in your network and aim to increase it by 20% this year. Can I challenge all the men in the room to do that? Aim to increase your network of women by 20% this year by reaching out to them and seeing what you have in common, finding opportunities to connect, doing some of the stuff that Pamela talked about. I really think those roundtables are very valuable and insightful, and having a balanced gender around the table would probably bring a lot of new perspectives. So that's a really great idea that I hope everyone's going to take away tonight. And encourage women on your team to network more, because again, I think that the idea of seeing a bunch of vice presidents in the same industry of different organizations who should be talking to one another, not having any idea about one another, or being aware that they should be interacting, I think was hopefully a watershed moment for them. Definitely something very interesting and exciting for you to get to do, and that all of us, I think, should take as a lesson. And for women, we have a natural inclination to help, so make this your attitude towards networking. A network is there to help. It's to help you, it's to help other people. And so if you think about it selfishly, it might be hard for you to put yourself out there and get yourself out of your comfort zone. But if you look at this as a way to have a larger network of people who can enable one another's success, it might help you feel more natural about stepping out there, finding the time, and making it fun for yourself. You know, it doesn't have to be a business formal, here's my card. It can be lunch with somebody that you haven't worked with in 10 years, right? Be open source about your contacts, but be smart. Purpose is really important. So of course, having the consideration for somebody's extremely busy life. If I write to Tracey, I know she's on 10 boards and she's running a bunch of companies, and what I come to you with hopefully is something that's going to interest you, helping that I'm young now that I know you're actually open to that. I think it's very important to remember, right, that what we bring to the table, our full authentic selves, are going to be interesting and exciting and welcome and provide new perspectives to the person who's welcoming you in. So I want to thank all of our panelists for being here tonight. Yes? No? Oh, I'm so sorry. We have questions.
Anybody have a question?
She nodded to me like, wrap it up.
No.
I'm following you. Yes, so sorry. Questions?
I have a question. There's ladies on the panel, but gentlemen in the room as well. Do you find that the Me Too moment has impacted the way that you guys network, or who you network with and how you network? And how are you mitigating any of those issues or risks? I find once upon a time, I wasn't intimidated to reach out to a male partner and ask if he wanted to grab a glass of wine or a coffee, but now I kind of think twice, and I'm sure it happens on the other end as well. So just wondering about your thoughts on that.
I'll take that one. Really good question. So actually, I was in the audience at a panel this morning, and this question came up. And so it does cross everyone's mind a little bit. And I, you know, there were some events that were really boozy events that, you know, how those go sometimes. And so you do think, I can tell everybody, I still go to them, but everybody's behaving a little bit better, which is good. But this is for the men out there, because I have heard some men say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to have a closed door meeting with women anymore, or I'm not sure about going for lunch. And I actually don't think they mean that. I think it's, but when a woman or your team, even men and women, hear you say that and you're a senior leader, that's really powerful, because what you're saying is, I'm not going to give the same opportunity to be mentored or to have that meeting or the same access to me. So even just, I would my advice would be really careful about making those types of statements.
And if I could add to it, it also, because it is a heightened environment and because there are those thoughts going on, I would probably not invite them for a drink, just so that you don't put them in uncomfortable situations, right? Just make it a neutral, make it a comfortable setting. I think it's neutralizing. I mean, even a year later, I think it's a different place, but I'm sorry, there's lots of questions.
In the meantime, there are some allies that are still open to mentoring women. And what was really powerful for me to see was that the allies that actually spoke up and said, this is what some people are saying, but we're actively not going to do that. And we're going to make opportunities for women because we recognize that's a need. So just, appreciating those allies.
And there's a bunch over there too.
Hello, thank you. This has been great, great session. As the oldest networker in the room, potentially, I thought I'd just offer two observations and maybe one question at the end. Number one, I was told once upon a time, and it's sure been true in my life, that my network is my net worth. My network is my net worth, and I'll tell you that has proven to be extremely accurate. My granddad, long past, was a great networker in his life, and I remember him once saying to me, Bob, he says, I've been in many situations where I found myself talking to someone that I thought was sort of boring, only to realize that I didn't ask the right questions.
Yeah, I like that.
True. Final thing, just to ask this group, I'm really big on this intentional networking thing, men or women. I find so many times we get into conversations with people, we haven't figured out what the end result might look like. Not that you can't bob and weave, but just at least have a clear idea before you start. And I wonder if the panel might just kind of pitch in on this whole notion of intentional networking. What does it look like? What have you done in that regard that's worked? Thanks.
I have a shameless plug for the Canadian Club. You know, the Canadian Club has been wonderful because if you're not familiar with what our kind of normal format is, it's typically a lunchtime event, and we have speakers from all different industries, and so sometimes it's actually you bring focus by saying, oh, here's a topic that I know that you and you would be interested in, and I'm not sure that you'd say yes to just a one-on-one lunch with me, but here's a topic. And so that has, and it's in a relatively inexpensive price point. So that's been a real success.
Yeah, no,
for
I
me.
think that's a great point. And also, you know, I've used it not just for networking, but also for mentoring, and that's been really effective as well. You know, I think Pam, from my perspective, summed it up perfectly, which is to you know, to kind of have, this is what I'm hoping to get out of our conversation. And as you said, sometimes you get additional things out of the conversation, but to at least go in with a starting point. And I actually think it also helps with any potential discomfort around #MeToo situations, where if, you know, both people know this is why we're getting together. I agree. I think going to someone's office actually is a good plan. At least initially, then you know, people are primed to be helpful and to try and contribute.
I'll come back to the one on the other side. Here you go, Alex.
Hello, thank you. Alex Brown with The Logic. I have heard some great ideas that I've also heard discussed 25 years ago in terms of networking. And I think maybe LinkedIn didn't exist 25 years ago. Do you have a role to take the wonderful ideas in terms of practical things? Like, people may say, what is networking? Like, what even is that? I have a 21-year-old daughter, and she and all of her friends are asking me, how do we connect? Does LinkedIn have Networking 101 tutorials? The whole idea of purposeful is so important, because when I have had friends ask me to help their children who are just graduating, and I have learned through painful experience and told the parent, the kid has to come to me with a purpose and a question. So maybe there's something that LinkedIn can do to help bottle this, because I sometimes feel we're going in circles on these conversations, and it drives me crazy, right? And so I want to be helpful to my daughter and all her friends. I have a friend who has started her own business coaching millennials on how to ask for interviews, how to ask for coffee meetings. And I think LinkedIn is the perfect place to do that. So I leave that with you. Good luck with that.
Well, it's a wonderful question, comment, suggestion, and you're right. So LinkedIn exists to allow people to connect with one another in ways that will allow them to do business, find opportunity, be productive. We can see as free LinkedIn members up to the 3rd degree connection, meaning Jake is my 1st degree connection. If Jake is directly connected with Anita, she would be my 2nd degree, and Anita being directly connected to Tracey would make her my 3rd, meaning LinkedIn exists in a way that allows visibility through trusted connections that far, so that I can ask Jake, hey Jake, I don't know Anita, but she's connected with Tracey. Our trust should be strong enough that my reputation with Jake should allow him to ask Anita to get Tracey, who doesn't perhaps even know Jake, to connect with me. So the visibility of our network exists to foster that kind of networking. But as we've learned, like, people have different comfort levels at different times of their lives. And I think it's true, especially for young people who aren't necessarily, they don't have that muscle yet. They're not strong yet. They don't necessarily know that they belong, that they can ask, right? That these connections are there. We're trying to make it easier for young people to be aware of this. And many schools, often private schools, will have their graduating classes build LinkedIn profiles before they graduate. But networking is the kind of thing that we are all at different levels with, and we are all growing in comfort with. And there's a myriad of resources online, not just on LinkedIn, but off LinkedIn, and as well your support team on LinkedIn. We do profile workshops a lot. We will come into companies or come into schools or host events where in the community people are looking to improve the way that they are visible, the way that they are found. That's one of the reasons you want to have a strong LinkedIn profile, is it's your reputation living on its own 24/7. It's like having an interview without having to be in the room. So LinkedIn as an entity exists to foster this kind of collaboration. But I'd say there might be work that the Logic can do with LinkedIn to communicate the ways that LinkedIn actually might be facilitating that. I would actually ask everybody around the room who has a smartphone with them, if you want to be connecting with the folks in the room, there's a really, really cool feature called Find Nearby. So if anybody has their smartphone, you can open it up. You look at your network settings in your LinkedIn app. You have a way to turn on your visibility to people in the room. So one of the very easy ways to leverage the connections in the room is to just make yourself a beacon. So anyone who's opening it, look at your LinkedIn app. If you look at the two little heads side by side, that's your network. On that page, there is something that looks like a target. This is a beacon that allows you to turn yourself on to be found by people nearby. So here's an easy way for anyone looking to connect with the folks in the room or looking to be connected with to be visible.
Just to answer what the 21-year-old said about what networking is, I relate. It's about understanding that networking is relationship building and making relationships with people that are further along in their career. And it could be to help figure out what you want to accomplish or what you perhaps don't want to be doing when you're, progressing over in your career. So it's really synonymous almost to relationship building.
We have two more questions.
Okay, hi. So what you just described, there's a feature there that you can open yourself up for students or people to reach out to you for specific areas of expertise. So I'm in sales, I'm in tech sales, and so I get a lot of requests to ask questions, to meet up for coffee, that kind of stuff. And I'll always get back to them. I might have a meeting 2 or 3 weeks out. My question today is, everyone on the panel, if you can give maybe one example of, for example, coming out to a network event like this, you might come with a friend, but you want to meet somebody else. So, what kind of things would you say out front to try to get yourself in a group and introduce yourself or meet someone? Because this is really a networking event. Great panel, great discussion, but there's people kind of floating around the room. So that's my question.
I would challenge everyone after we're done. I assume we've got a little bit of networking time. Walk up to somebody, you have no idea who they are, stick your hand out and introduce yourself. I mean, it is scary the first few times you do it, but if someone did that to you, you would be like so thankful that they did that. And so just make the first move.
Yeah. I agree. Ask them what they do. Right? I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated.
I mean, we're at a networking event, so like.
And I would only add, be actually interested.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, like you can tell when someone's actually listening and actually interested.
Yeah. So I was recently at a Women in Governance conference event sort of thing, and somebody invited me, and I was just so overwhelmed that you're inviting me to this event. That I went, and I came early, so I knew no one there. But the person that I reached out to, and I just, saw her staying to the side, I was just very interested in my drink. So then I went up to her and I started a conversation. But we created a really, really good situation where she didn't know that many people there either, and we created a friendship afterwards. We did connect on LinkedIn, by the way, afterwards. But it's just, other people are really uncomfortable too. It's like everyone's on the same boat. And it's really, really hard, pulling the Band-Aid off and just going up to someone. But sometimes even smiling at them starts a conversation.
It's a good strategy to go early.
Yeah.
Because then you become the group that people join. You kind of find the first few people instead of walking into a crowded room.
Yeah.
It can be intimidating.
Yeah.
No pressure. I'm Victoria from Ryerson's Leadership Lab. There's the age-old phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And we were assigned a reading in class that essentially countered that and said, good work gets noticed. It inspired a very heated debate in class, and people landing on all sides of the spectrum, including, well, it's a matter of doing both. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that phrase. And hands went up, so
I see this a lot, and by the way, it is, for me, I see it more gender bias towards women who just think, I'm just going to do good work, and people will notice, and there's a frustration when it's not noticed. So I would say too, it's not one or the other, it is both. And when, as an example, when I'm calling someone for a job, I want somebody who's great at that job. So you got to be great at what you do. But I really do believe it goes beyond just, doing good work. You have to be an interesting and interested person.
I'm so happy you're here. You're in university and you're here. I think it's really, really important to. I'm the daughter of immigrants. We don't have that many connections. My parents won't be able to connect me to someone and be like, this is where your summer job's gonna happen. You really have to, get yourself in there and be assertive, which is something that doesn't come naturally, to be able to build these relationships that can help you showcase your hard work. That it's not that you're saying you're not hard work, it's something that goes hand in hand. And I totally understand how difficult it is to be able to do that, but you kind of need to do both so that you're able to create connections with people that can mentor you, especially when you don't have that golden Rolodex in your family or your neighborhood or whatever it is, to be able to find that for yourself.
And I would just, to what Pam is saying, that equally applies within your organization. Especially a large organization. It's so critical to network within your own organization. You just can't expect to get promoted if you don't make people aware of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, and if I may add, even being really successful at what it is that you're doing and having connections in your network doesn't mean people are going to be able to guess what you want, right? So having a voice in where you go next means talking about it. And when you're asked, well, so why do you want to manage the team? Because I love XYZ about leadership. And I would recommend to anyone who's not naturally good at this, keeping an accomplishment file. Send yourself an email when you're like, go me. Right? And then when you need to do your quarterly review, your annual review, or apply for a promotion, you'll have a little file of reminders of what it is that you're actually.
Can I add one thing? Because
Yes.
it just occurred to me today. So as you move up in your organization, you take on leadership roles. I get asked all the time for, Anita, we're having this sales and relationship program, and who would you recommend for it? Or, oh, there's a client opportunity and it's 24-hour, who would you recommend for it? Increasingly, I send people that I know they're good, that's table stakes, and they're just the people that I know because I have 60 minutes to respond. And if you come to me and make me aware of you and your interest, you're great. So as much as I'd love to be balanced and figure out what everyone wants, there isn't time. So that internal networking is
vital.
Yeah.
Vital.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I think that was probably our last question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Can I get everybody to help me thank our amazing panel? I was given notes, and I'm going to give Colleen a heart attack because every time I get up here I screw it up. But to be totally blunt, all I really want to do is thank these folks. They have sort of been the most amazing mentors for me. And so I must say networking and mentorship in my mind are very closely intertwined. And maybe to go from high to low and back up high again, my mother instilled almost from birth that I should be a feminist, and I'm very proud of that because for instance, my last name, it's her name first and then my dad's name. And that was in part because they both wanted to send that message, for the rest of my brother and my life. But quite quickly I realized the world didn't look that way, right? That the world didn't work in a way where women's names came first or were even sort of there at all in many cases. And that was really disappointing. And I think the Me Too movement is part of me learning even the things that I have done to not respect women over the course of my life. And that really, I think it had a positive impact on me because I'm still learning about all of the things that I haven't done. But what amazes me about this panel is that from way before it broke on international news, I was learning how I should run my life from them. And I mean, every single person up here has influenced, Cindy I met 3 years ago, and some of these things are very professional, and some of these things are hanging out on Miami Beach at 3 in the morning and trying to figure out what the right mix of professional and not professional is at our LinkedIn sales kickoff. But some of them, I mean, Khadija I met first as the youngest person on the Canadian Club board because I had been until she was there on this board, and she was way smarter and way more powerful and way more influential than I was, and that was confirmed when 2 weeks later I walked into the Prime Minister's office and there's Khadija welcoming me into the office, and I'm like, what is going on here? I was so confused that I don't think I ever really regained my composure. But every single person, we were at Pam's house during the first year that I was on the board, and Pam can not just command a meeting and a house, but she can also make you feel at home while in her boardroom in a way that even surpasses how we all felt at home in her house. And so it's that ability to balance each of, I mean, Tracey, in terms of getting people motivated to do things they don't want to do, like, it's really, really hard, but that's how you become as influential as these amazing women are. And the first, I think, coffee date that I went on with someone from our board was Anita. And it was, I think, a process for both of us to figure out, what are we doing here? What is networking like on the board of the Canadian Club? Certainly for me, surrounded by people way more sort of interesting and smart and influential. It has just been an amazing experience. And I must say, without a doubt, it is the women on the board who have been my most amazing mentors, including Colleen. So I'll start with that. Thank you. So I'm supposed to say a couple things, which I will say. So coming up, we've got a few events, and you guys should all come. You'll see networking in a very different environment. We're planning to bring Michael Denham, who's the president and CEO of BDC, the Bank for Entrepreneurs, to the club on Wednesday, March 27th. On Thursday, March 28th, we're going to play host to Inspire Awards panel. So it's going to be celebrating and learning from young Indigenous leaders as Canada continues on our path towards reconciliation. So mark those dates on your calendar, the 27th and the 28th of March, for those two events. And before we close, I've got to say thank you to McCarthy's, our event sponsor. It was the first place I ever applied for a job when I got out of law school. So thank you, McCarthy's, for sponsoring this event. And without their support, we really wouldn't be having this conversation. And also thank you to MediaEvents.ca, Canada's online event space, and BBC for live streaming this event and all of our events. So thank you. That's it, folks. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for networking before and after. Hang out.